Hello, everyone. Dear students, we are here to talk about the topic communication process, before which I would like to introduce with the importance and symbolic word communication. What does communication means and why it is so important? If I say it is exchange of thoughts, ideas, it is exchange of expressions and emotions. Yes, indeed, it is. The word communication derived from a Latin word commune, which means common. Common means it is important for everyone, despite the fact which caste, creed, color, language, culture you belong to, but each one of us require communication for expression of our ideas, change of thoughts. Our sometimes communication is very important to put our words across. It could be in the form of verbal or non-verbal, but it is important. Now, if I say communication, then I also need to mention here that there are four perfect pillars which are important for every human being, or why a human being, I can say living being. And when I say human being, these four pillars are essential. When we talk in the form of linguistics, we say yes, these four pillars are important, and those four pillars are reading, writing, speaking, and listening. All these four pillars are important whenever we try to communicate what we think or what we want to put across. Here, the highlight of today's segment is communication process. And every communication requires all these elements, which I'm going to explain with the slides in this process or in this segment of my lecture. The first thing which we can see here is communication process. And as I told you, the term communication is derived from the Latin word communis. Communis means common, which is common to all. Communication is common to all, it is for all, and it helps each and every individual to put across his thoughts or exchange of information, ideas, facts, opinions, beliefs, feelings, and attitudes through verbal or non-verbal means between two people or within a group of people. So, we need to understand the importance of communication, a process through which individuals mutually exchange their ideas, or we can say values, thoughts, feelings, and actions with one or more people. We also say that the transfer of information from the sender to the receiver so that it is understood in the right context. So this means we require two groups or two individuals to create that exchange of thoughts and ideas. The process of initiating, transmitting, and receiving information. Initiating means when you create a beginning for any conversation. It may be in the form of just putting your thoughts across, or it may be in the form of discussions. Transmitting, that is what you want to transform or transfer to the other person, what you want to transmit from your angle to the other person. It should be very clear. And receiving information. So you have to be a good listener. As I told you, the four pillars. So you have to be a good reader. At the same time, you have to be a good listener whenever communication process takes place. The means of making the transfer of information productive and goal oriented. It is also very important to understand that just passing on information in a simple way is not the end. It has to be communicated in its perfect and productive manner. It should be goal oriented so that whatever we communicate is actually having a sense. The process of sharing information, ideas, and attitudes between individuals. It may sound a repetitive uh, word, or chronological order may be sounding very repetitive, but these are the main things which we need to understand and remember whenever we talk about communication skills or we talk about communication process. The next slide which comes to you is two definitions which are given by first Webster's Dictionary, in which it states that communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols and signs of behavior. As I told you, we have verbal and non-verbal form of communication. So it depends which form we are using for what purpose, and the purpose should be solved through the symbols also. It could be solved through the sign language also. It could be our gestures, postures, which we create while having any kind of communication. Communication is interchange of thoughts, opinions, or information by speech, writing, or signs. This is again a definition given by Robert Anderson. So these are two important definitions which define the complete process of communication in itself. Here we have the process of communication, which I would like to explain through this presentation. where we can see there are important elements. These important elements are defined as sender. Sender, who is the person who encodes a message. Message, the second step, which speaks about the environment. Why environment? Because environment deals with many things. It could be a professional communication, it could be a personal communication, it could be the people who are there existing in the environment, and which makes a difference. And we need to make the right choice of which channel we need to choose for developing or encoding our message. What is the purpose of encoding that message? To whom we are sending that message? So we need to make the right choice of the channel. Next comes the receiver. The receiver is again the person, the recipient of that message. Now, it is important here to make that person understand what you want to convey, what you want to put across. And the language, the choice of, or the selection of language, selection of the methodology, that is the channels, and framing of message should be very clear without using any abusive language, or keeping in mind the formal language of the world, or we can say your business etiquettes. The most important thing here is in these steps is the feedback system. Without feedback, it is said that no communication is complete without feedback. And feedback is that element which makes us understand that yes, the things or the conversation or the communication or the message which we wanted to put across has been sent completely in its apt manner. Through feedback, we get the response of the recipient or the receiver of that message, which also helps us maybe at times to correct ourselves, or maybe at times to redefine or redo certain things which are not so accurate as per the demand. In other words, we can say what the other person needs is a part where we get the feedback and we can make those rectifications in our communication. So these things are defined in the further slides with their one-liners where you can understand that yes, this is what this element works as. So I have highlighted it as elements of the communication. A sender is a person who encodes and sends the message to the expected receiver through an appropriate channel, the one whom I'm sending the message to. A sender is the source of the message that is generated to be delivered to the receiver after appropriate stimulus from the referent. Here it is again same, that sender is playing a very important role in framing the message, in making choice of the channel and to the person to whom he or she is transferring or transmitting that message. Second is, as we saw in the presentation, the graphical presentation which I have given here, the second important element is message. Message is the content of communication and may contain non-verbal or symbolic language. Sometimes we say, we put a thumbs up. This is a symbolic language, okay? Which means perfect, good, correct. It is non-verbal. When if I'm even blinking my eyes, I'm giving consent for something. Yes, it's correct, it's good. If I'm making a smile, then also it's a kind of communication which I'm creating. Perception and personal factors of the sender and receiver may sometimes distort this element, and the intended outcome of communication may not be achieved. For example, the same message may be communicated or perceived differently by two individuals. We always give a very beautiful example of half glass filled or half glass is empty. That is the perception of an individual, how you look at the things, how you take things and accept things. So when communication is made, you have to be very rational. You need not move or deviate from the point, and you need not bring personal issues or personal grudges in between whenever we talk on official terms or we have those official communications. It should be absolutely professional. Next step, which I have shown you, the element is channel. Choice of correct channel. A channel is a medium through which a message is sent or received between two or more people. Whether I'm sending a written message, or I'm on telephonic communication, or is it an advertisement, it is a digital advertisement, it is a printed advertisement or printed message. All these things are known as the medium or the channels of communication which we choose as per our requirement from time to time. Several channels can be used to send or receive the message, that is seeing, hearing, touching, smelling and tasting. While selecting channels of communication, several factors must be considered. Availability of the channels. Yes, it is important. We need to know that what all channels or mediums of communication are available for to solve that purpose or for keeping forward or putting across the communication. So availability of channels, purpose, suitability, time of or your types of receivers, types of message, preference of sender and receivers, communication skills of the sender, cost, etc. All these things have to be kept in mind or borne in mind when we make choice of channel or medium of communication. This is, I have just tried to elaborate on the channels which are usually spoken or exist. Visual channels, which talks about facial expression, body language, postures, gestures, pictures, and written words, electronic mails, mass media, etc. Then we have auditory channel, which are spoken words, sounds, telephone or mobile communications, delivering audio content, that is radio, voicemail, etc. Tactile channel, touch sensations, the that is reputic touch, etc. And then we have combined channel, that is audiovisual media, consoling a person with touch and spoken words. So we use both methods. These are those various classifications of channels which we should use while communicating or while putting our thoughts across. The next element which we saw in the diagram was the receiver, which is again very important, where we see the sender and the receiver needs to be there. It could be one-to-one, it could be in the form of group. So a receiver is an individual or a group of individuals intend to receive, decode, and interpret the message sent by the sender through message. A receiver also or is also known as a decoder. This term encoding and decoding started from the army people who first depicted a model on communication, where they use these terms of encoding and decoding a message, where the forces used to have their own sign language or the language of encoding and decoding a message. He is expected to have the ability and skill to receive, decode, and interpret the message in its right manner. It is very important. Receiving the message is of course important, but to interpret, to decode, and to have the skill and ability to see it in the right perspective is very, very important to fulfill or to complete any communication. As I have explained in between also, that feedback is very important. It is a return message sent by the receiver to the sender, stating that yes, first thing, that the message is received, second thing, that the message is understood, third thing, what all his expectations or what all he or she expected or the receiver expected is up to the mark. It is most essential element of the communication process, as it shows that the receiver has understood the primary message sent by the sender and the communication process is now considered complete. A successful communication must be a two-way process where the sender sends the message and receives feedback from the receiver. These feedback could be verbal or non-verbal. This is confounding elements. These are very important. These elements are not a direct part of the flow of the communication process, but influence the communication process significantly indirectly. These elements are interpersonal variables of the senders and the receivers and the environment where the communication process takes place. There are certain things which are confined to the environment. There are certain rules and regulations which we need to keep in mind while creating a communication. So these are those confounding elements and which have to be kept in mind while creating communication, while sending messages, while receiving and giving feedback of those messages from one person to another, or from organizations to organizations, or from group of people to another group of people. Interpersonal variables such as perception, beliefs, values, social culture, background, cultural backgrounds, educational and developmental levels, emotion, gender, physical and mental health, etc., may significantly affect the communication process. Yes, there are certain drawbacks. We always say there are two sides of the coin, and every coin has its own, or every side has its own story. So we need to keep in mind these two. Thank you so much for listening to me, and we'll get back soon with the second lecture on further effective communication and its other elements. Thank you.